Welcome to Capitol Conversations, Appropriations Chairman. We are very excited to have you.
Great to be with you.
And so I feel like what we have tried to do a lot on our show is to talk to people who don't really understand what's going on in Washington, D.C. And obviously with the government shutdown happening, there's a lot of questions about, what a shutdown is and how we got to this point. And so I feel like what we would love to have people hear from you is, what do people need to know about the appropriations process that a lot of people don't really get?
Well, first of all, it doesn't cover all government spending. We do the day-to-day operations of the government, so like defense, air traffic control, those sorts of things. So actually most of the budget is Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. We don't have anything to do with any of those three. They're actually in other committees. So when you're talking about appropriations, you're talking about what most people think of as the government, but only about 26% of total federal spending. Now, when I say only, that's almost $1.7 trillion. So it's pretty important, and it's all of defense is funded this way. And again, most of the day-to-day operations of the government. We do that pretty well. It's in 12 different bills. We have 12 different subcommittees. The committee itself is the largest committee in Congress in terms of the size of the staff and the impact of the staff and just how many different areas of life it touches. And we were actually moving along pretty well this year. All 12 bills were out of committee before September 30th. The Senate had made more progress than it normally makes. It's more cumbersome over there, but they were moving along. And then all of a sudden, when we're getting ready to go into negotiation, we're in negotiations over 3 of the 12 bills we have to pass, and we're pretty close. We could literally wrap them up in about 48 hours. The Democrats decided to place 2 unrelated demands in appropriations, which is we're going to change the Medicaid system back to what it was before the big, beautiful bill in July was passed. Well, that bill actually had passed both houses and been signed by the president, so it's the law. We're not going to undo the law. And second, there are some Obamacare subsidies for health insurance that are running out on December 31st. No Republican voted for Obamacare, no Republican voted for these subsidies, but they have to be extended and renewed or we're going to shut down the government. And so that's really what the standoff is. Now, what the president has offered, and Majority Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson said, we will talk to you. We will negotiate with you on these other issues. But let's get the government open first. We'll keep talking. They want a guaranteed outcome that they don't have the votes to achieve. There's no way they could pass this measure through the Senate and through the House at this point. President would be unlikely to sign it as is. They're literally holding the government hostage, and that means literally men and women in uniform that are deployed have to wonder, am I going to get paid? Is my family going to be taken care of? The Capitol Police that sit here and protect us all got half a paycheck 2 weeks ago, probably get nothing this time. We've got women and children in the so-called WIC program, Women and Infant Children support system, millions of them. We're going to run out of money for that in November. So you're literally holding people hostage to achieve an unrelated policy objective that we're willing to negotiate with you on, but we're not willing to say you get everything you want or we punish the American people. And that's really, it is blackmail in a political sense.
We haven't seen too many conversations between House Minority Leader Jeffries, House Speaker Mike Johnson with President Trump. But what have the conversations been like between top appropriators like you and Ranking Member DeLauro with also the top ranking?
Actually, very good. I was on the phone with Rosa this morning. We're very good friends. We worked together for 8 years. 4 I was chair, 4 she was chair on the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education bill, biggest domestic spending bill. It's always controversial. We always got to the same place. That is, we didn't start in the same place, but we came to a deal, and each side could always support the deal 8 times. So we did that pretty well. And in that same 8-year period, Patty Murray was on the Democratic side on that bill. So the three of the 4 of us have worked together very, very well over a lot of years. Doesn't mean we agree on things, but we know how to get to a deal. And honestly, I will tell you, they're both honest negotiators. They're tough, they're smart. Rosa in particular, as a former staff person, really knows the bill better than most members know any bill. So I have enormous respect for her, and we work together well. And then our fourth person, Susan Collins, is like a legendary appropriator and legislator. So I have no doubt if we were focused on our 12 bills, we would get to an agreement pretty quickly. We all know how to do it. We all have a track record of doing it. And I always say in the Senate, you have to get to 60 because of the filibuster. That's their choice. It's not in the Constitution. It's not the law. It's a Senate rule, but they do it. So the minute you get to 60 in the Senate, which we have 53 Republicans, you have to pick up 7 Democrats. I promise you I'm going to lose 20 or 30 Republicans because of what they had to do to get to 7 Democrats. So I got to have Democrats. So this is a bipartisan process. It's not like the big beautiful bill with something called reconciliation, where you can literally do it with a majority in each chamber. We have to get to a bipartisan majority to be able to pass these bills. We're pretty good at doing that, but these are now unrelated items that have been introduced into the appropriations process.
And so moving forward to get us out of this mess that is the shutdown, I think what we are all wondering is kind of what is the game plan right now, especially among appropriators. Right now, the CR that the Senate is voting on currently and has been voted down quite a bit, it goes until November 21st, but we're already getting very close to that day, time's being eaten up. What is the game plan that you think the House should follow? Should the House come back and vote on a new CR, or is there a new date being discussed?
There's really not much use in voting on a new CR until we reopen the government. I mean, because you don't know what the date's going to be until the government's reopened, and when the government's reopened, it means you're in negotiations. I'm very comfortable. I think our conference is with where the Speaker is, which is, look, we've done our work. We're waiting for the Senate to send us something back. It doesn't even have to be exactly what we sent them. If they come to an agreement on something, he's got us all on 48-hour notice that you have to be back, and we will respond to whatever the Senate does. But you can't sit there and negotiate against yourself. And since the continuing resolution itself is a clean bill, there's nothing new about it. There's no gimmicks, there's no tricks, there's no poison pills. We don't have anything to give them. We gave them what they asked for. Earlier in this process, in the 4 top appropriators meeting, my Democratic colleagues asked for 2 things. They asked for a short-term CR, which is what we gave them until November 21st. The Trump administration had wanted to go into January, but frankly, we all agreed, no, we want deadlines that are closer, because around Congress, deadlines are like alarm clocks. People wake up about the time they were supposed to finish it, and they extend it further. So we agreed with them on that. And then they wanted what's called a totally clean CR. That is nothing else extraneous put into it. And that's where we gave them that. And then a few days later, here comes the demand from their leadership. No, we're going to add things that this committee has no jurisdiction over. We're going to undo the Medicaid changes that you passed into law and the president signed on July 4th. That's not going to happen. We want these Medicaid or Obamacare subsidies extended. That's probably something that can be negotiated. But basically, if you look at what they're asking for, they've asked for a guaranteed $1.5 trillion over 10 years in exchange for a 4 to 7 week continuing resolution. I mean, who's going to agree to that? Nobody. So they have a demand, an ask that nobody in their right mind would ever agree to, and they certainly wouldn't agree to if their roles were reversed. And in fact, when we were at least in the majority in the House and had repealed Obamacare back in 2013 in the House, and then we were demanding they do it in the Senate, which had a Democratic majority at the time, and that a guy named Obama signed the repeal of Obamacare, not very likely. And eventually, we threw a temper tantrum for 16 days and kept the government shut down. They've now done the same thing for 20 days and no end in sight. And it's getting to the point that, look, it's jeopardizing millions of American paychecks, services that people that really do need services rely on, like WIC. It's just unconscionable. You're literally hurting the people that you represent to achieve something that the other side said, look, we're not going to capitulate, but we will negotiate with you on. We'll try to find a middle ground. All we're asking you to do in the meantime is keep the government open so the American people get the services they're entitled to, so the men and women that defend us or protect our borders or make sure that we can fly safely actually get paid in full and on time. That's not, and we'll negotiate all the appropriations bills with you, which we are actually further along than we've been in years until this. And we can do those things, but again, they've got to be willing to reopen the government so we can start the process.
I knew that whenever you became appropriations chair, a big goal of yours was to get the appropriations process back on track, which it had not been in years and years and years, as we've seen in Washington, just due to the chaos. Obviously, as you said, you all were ahead on the bills. All 12 had passed out of committee. Coming up to the fiscal year deadline, what were those obstacles that kind of led to y'all needing that short-term CR?
Well, number one, the Senate, which had done much better than it done, was still behind us. They've only gotten 6 bills out of committee, 3 across the floor like we have, so they need a little extra time. But it's the first time that they had passed bills across the floor before September in 7 years. So look, John Thune actually ran for majority leader on restoring the appropriations process in the Senate. I think he's been good to his word. Again, I think Susan Collins and Patty Murray know how to work together. They've demonstrated that for years. So we were moving along pretty good, and there was every reason to believe we could certainly finish before the end of the calendar year. Now, because of this unrelated set of demands by Democrats and this government shutdown, they're delaying. Every single day is a wasted day. And, you know, they're not going to negotiate bills with us for year-long funding while they've got the government shut down, because each bill we pass would free up part of the government. If we pass the 3 bills that are under consideration now, military construction and veterans affairs, agriculture, and then what's called the legislative branch, the operation of Congress, all 3 of those things would immediately be fully funded and operational through September 30th. So if the Democrats literally, my counterparts can't negotiate with me while their leadership is shutting down the government, because they would be undermining their own leadership. And I respect that, I understand that, they got to work with their leaders, but these are ridiculous demands, and they are things that have nothing to do with the appropriations process or committee. They should be dealt with separately. And again, where, you know, the subsidies, which seems to be the hottest single issue, are concerned, this is a bill Democrats wrote, passed themselves, and a date they set. How is that like our fault that you wrote the bill with no Republican input, no Republican vote, you passed it, you could have made it permanent, you picked this date for the subsidies to run out, and now, while we're willing to negotiate with you, because nobody wants to see families subjected to skyrocketing insurance rates, we're not willing to guarantee you we're going to make what you made temporary permanent indefinitely, which is what the demand is. So, I mean, we're dealing with an irrational and unreasonable negotiation part, not at the appropriations level, where I think my counterparts are very rational and reasonable, but at the leadership level. And I think this, again, has a lot to do with Senator Schumer agreed to keep the government open at this level, you know, in March. He got a lot of grief for that, not from Republicans. Actually, Donald Trump congratulated him at the time. So I think you did the right thing. And now you guys keep working on your bills, and we'll see where we end up. But the first person to throw him under the bus was Leader Jeffries, who literally, you know, almost every Democrat voted to shut down the government. And you know, that's the amazing thing to me. When I look at some of the polls, and some of the people, well, this percentage blame the Republicans, this percentage blame the Democrats. The reality is almost every Republican member of the House and the Senate has voted over and over to keep the government open or reopen the government. Almost every Democrat has voted no. Now, not every Democrat. We do have a bipartisan majority in both chambers that voted to keep the government open. 55 people in the Senate. So, you know, that includes 2 Democrats and an independent who caucuses. with the Democrats. So solid majorities in both chambers want the government to stay open. It's only the two top leaders of the Democratic Party, and I can tell you, a lot of their members are not comfortable with where they're at. A lot of their members think this is not something we should be doing, is shutting down the government. We should be negotiating, working, trying to find common ground. But again, it's Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries who I think have ginned up this fight, gotten the country in a seriously dangerous situation, and don't have any earthly idea how to get out of the box that they put themselves in.
And you had mentioned that once the government reopens and negotiations start again, you think that you could move several of these bills rather quickly?
Almost immediately. I mean, we had because we'd been working on it. So we've resolved all the issues, and the negotiations really went well. And we have a pretty good idea what the next package should be. Believe me, the appropriators want to do their job. They do not want a year-long continuing resolution. I can assure you my Democratic colleagues feel that way, where we agree or disagree on things. We want to do our work. And we are, look, we all know how to compromise with one another. We all know it's going to take a bipartisan coalition to pass these appropriations bills. But, we're not the right place to negotiate health care policy. We don't do that. Our committees aren't set up for it. And these are, again, extraneous demands, dumped in at the last minute by Democratic leadership, not by the Democratic ranking members of the House. They didn't come up with this idea. They didn't say we have to have that. A range of other things they were concerned about, but there were things that were within the jurisdiction of our committee. These things are beyond our jurisdiction. It's an artificial crisis, literally created by Democratic leaders, too, that want a crisis and think it will advantage them politically in next year's elections. All it's doing right now is hurting people. And again, we've offered them, let's just keep the government open, just like it is now. We're not asking anything from you. We're not asking you to give anything up. Keep it open. We'll negotiate on the other issues you're concerned about with you. Hopefully we can come to a common solution, but don't punish the American people while we work out our disagreements. It's just unconscionable.
And do you think that if, the shutdown ended before November, that would give you about 20 days or so before the end of that CR? Do you think that in those 20 days you could move all of the appropriations bills, or are you foreseeing that there will need to be a CR again?
We would need another CR because we've wasted so far 4 weeks of this one. But we could make significant progress, and each bill you pass means that part of the government's open and functional through the end of the fiscal year. So we could get a lot of them done, and we could lay the groundwork for the rest of them. There's no reason why this needs to go, much beyond the calendar year if we started now. But every day we delay pushes that further out. Right. And I think that's the frustration that we have on not only my committee, but our leadership has, because they've seen us making progress. They've seen us working together. I think the Speaker has a hard time understanding why Leader Jeffries wanted to shut down a process that was actually working, that was producing bills that we were compromising with them on and working with them on. And look, again, I think it's just a short-term political calculation, and whatever President Trump is for, they're against. The tragedy is he's not really involved in this. Is a congressional function, and we work closely with the White House. Obviously, they present us a budget, then we look at that budget. We've changed that budget over the course of the year, and they've been okay with that. There's been no objection. So, I mean, it's just we're picking a fight with the president because we think it helps us with our political base. But it certainly doesn't help men and women that don't get paid. It certainly doesn't help, families where genuinely need assistance. And it certainly doesn't keep our skies safe. We're asking air traffic controllers to work for free while we travel. I mean, they got bills to pay too. They've got mortgages, they got car payments, they've got families that need to get fed. It's just not appropriate what we're doing to our own workforce.
As the top appropriator, do things like rescissions packages make it a little bit harder to negotiate with appropriators on the other side? Just
They do. Now, I hasten to add here, I don't have any problem with the rescissions package that passes Congress. That means Congress re-looked at its work, decided, now we don't need to do that. You do. So, and if you look at the rescissions packages we've had, look, I don't tell you that billions of dollars is not significant money, but one of them was for about $9 billion. One of them was for about $4.9 billion. Those things are not, that's $15 billion in a almost $1.7 trillion budget. I mean, it's not that much. So I think Congress, but we ought to scrutinize it. And there's a legal issue here where there really is a legitimate dispute. The Office of Management and Budget, which produces the president's budget and works for the president, has held the position it's arguing since Gerald Ford was president. Gerald Ford's OMB had the same position that Donald Trump's does. So guess what? Gerald Ford was not a dangerous radical president, okay? And the Government Accounting Office, which works for the Congress, it's sort of the counterpart, actually held the same position as the OMB until 2018. Then they changed it. So there actually is a legal issue here as to what role rescissions play and how much is it. And I think it probably needs to get settled by the court, since look, they have really pretty smart lawyers at OMB and they have really smart lawyers at GAO, and they disagree. That's what court systems are for. But no matter what you say, the amount of money we're talking about here is relatively small. Most of it came out of foreign aid or was leftover spending. Secretary Rubio agreed with all this. He said it's money I don't need, or money that's being wasted, or money that wasn't spent so it can be reclaimed by the Treasury. Again, I think the hyper-partisanship here is over the top. But again, I understand the friction, the disagreements, but there's nothing we can't work through here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of going off that same question with rescissions, during a time like a government shutdown or a few months ago when a rescissions package passed, this is a committee that desperately needs bipartisanship, and you obviously have good relationships with your Democratic counterparts. How do you keep those relationships alive in such a hyper-partisan time?
Well, number one, you try to never let this get personal. I understand legitimate political differences, and I understand people fighting for ours. Number two, look, if you're doing 12 bills, we do a lot of meetings, a lot of hearings.
Yeah,
a lot of togetherness.
And we travel. And matter of fact, I was in the Middle East in October before the election last year with Rosa DeLauro. We took a delegation over. I called her and said, Rosa, I'm making my first trip as chairman. And we're actually going to the Middle East at a time of high tension. I think it's important. We visited with Netanyahu in Israel. We visited with King Abdullah in Jordan. We were Al-Sisi, the president of Egypt. We had an appointment with the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia. He got called away, and we ended up spending the day with the foreign minister and a couple of other ministers. But they were really high level. And we wanted, even with a contentious election coming up, to project the image we work together and we're on the same team. As a matter of fact, Rosa and I had this routine. You always sit down with the foreign leaders. You're in their country, they make the opening remarks, and then you respond. And I would always begin, I said, I want you to know you are meeting with the next chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. We just don't know who it is yet. But it's going to be one of us.
Right.
Okay, and we want you to know we work together. We understand our commitments to Jordan are very important, and our commitments to Egypt are very important, and our commitments to Israel are supremely important. And on these issues, we speak with one voice. And so it was actually a very powerful thing and a good thing to be doing at the time. So we know one another. I consider these people, even though I disagree with them politically, as friends, and particularly the ones I've worked with for any number of years. And Rosa DeLauro and I have worked together. As a matter of fact, Rahm Emanuel used to call us the odd couple. Who would believe, that you two actually work together and pass legislation together, because you're so different stylistically and you're different philosophically. But I consider him my friend. Same, I have lots of friends on the other side. Good legislation means recognizing you don't have to agree on everything, and that the other people have a point of view, and that their motivation is good. So we're pretty good at that on the appropriations. Congress is full of different cultures, and there are certain committees I call shirts and skins committee. Look, if you're going to oversight or you're going to judiciary, it's shirts and skin.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They don't have to cooperate to pass legislation. They quite often pass it on a strictly partisan basis. At the end of the day, that's not going to happen in appropriations. So you have to maintain a level of decorum and relationships with one another, and you get to know your counterparts as people, not just as political adversaries that you're going to work with. And sometimes you'll be in the majority, sometimes you'll be in the minority. What are the things you can work on together? My case, obviously I've got a very federal heavy district. I've got 2 huge military installations with unique roles. Tinker Air Force Base is the largest air depot in the world. Fort Sill is the home of the field artillery since 1911. Air defense, all the Patriots, all of that. Every bomber in the United States fleet moves through Tinker Air Force Base. Every tanker, every AWACS plane. So these are unique facilities. I have the National Weather Center. I have Kerr Water Labs and Ada, which I have a big federal presence, and appropriations means I need to figure out how to advance their interests, protect their funding, and work with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that I recognize they have interests as well. So it's actually a pretty neat committee if you think of Congress as a place to resolve differences and come to bipartisan solutions, because that's what it has to do, and it has to do it every year. That's another big difference between my committee. I call Energy and Commerce and Ways and Means home run committees, because they swing for the fences. Yeah. And most of the time they strike out, because nothing happens. If they don't get their work done, things just stay the same until maybe once a decade you rewrite the tax code the way we did in 2017 and made permanent in the big beautiful bill. My committee has to do its work every year. You can't fund longer than a year. So if we don't get our work done, something shuts down someplace. And it's something that's important, like the National Weather Center. I mean, my bases are bigger employers. You travel Oklahoma, I guarantee you, when you're at Tinker, they know Fort Sill is important, but they don't care about it. They don't talk about it. And the other way, everybody in Oklahoma cares about the National Weather Center because it's Tornado Alley. And it's also storm prediction for the entire country for hurricanes and things like that. So, again, these facilities are important, and if they don't get funded, we don't get services that we need, and the men and women that we've tasked to do those jobs don't get paid. That's unconscionable. They're doing important work for the American public. They deserve a paycheck. And certainly anybody in a uniform that's deployed or not deployed, whose family is sacrificed for them to serve, they deserve to get paid in full and on time. We expect them to be there for us when we need them, and they are. They never let us down. Their own government shouldn't let them down either. And again, very proud the president at least made sure our men and women in uniform got paid. But he can't do that indefinitely. We need to get our work done here. There's no excuse not to do it.
And do you see that, if once we hopefully open the government soon, and then once you guys are starting...
I'll make a prediction. At some point, it will reopen.
And I hope so. Fingers crossed.
The United States government is not closed down forever.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. That is news. That is breaking news. Are you thinking that you could wrap this up if the government reopens by the end of the calendar year?
I think we could. Every day that goes by makes that less likely. So, literally, we're burning daylight here. So we could come to agreement pretty quickly, or at the worst, early into the next year. There's always some sensitivity in Congress about jamming people at Christmas. We're not trying to jam anybody. We're not trying to present them a bill, and you can't go home to your families until you pass this, even though you don't know what's in it. We want them to know what's in it. We want them to know what's there. We want our coalition that passes this to be bipartisan. I expect to get Democratic votes. I won't get every Republican vote. But I would hope a majority of each side can vote on keeping the government open when they're appropriators that they've chosen have come to an agreement. Here's the bill. Here's, yeah, I didn't get everything I wanted. They didn't get everything they wanted, but here's the bill, and it will take care of paying people and providing essential services to the country and keep it secure and functional. That's not too much to ask, and unfortunately, we're in a situation now where we think Democratic leadership is being incredibly unreasonable. They're demanding things that they don't have the votes to achieve, and they're holding the government hostage. They're putting the security, the safety, the American people at work. I mean, we always think about people in uniform, but how safe are you if there's not meat inspectors making sure that the product you buy and put on your table, maybe for your family, is safe? Those people are still working. They worked through COVID at great risk. So we owe them their paychecks. These are, again, not that hard to figure out that you owe the people that do the work that protect you and keep you safe, a paycheck.
Awesome. I think that was all of our questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.